Dear Void, what if I told you there's a philosopher that said that only by the power of the mind and reason can a person become moral? Or that miracles and supernatural beliefs are absolute nonsense meant to fool the weak-minded and only the laws of nature exist in real life? You'd probably say, well, that's an atheist. They are a dime a dozen these days. Okay, what if I told you that this guy is not just religious, but one of the most important religious figures in the entire history of Judaism? So important that people say between Moses and this guy, there's no one like them. And what if I told you that this modern thinker lived in the 12th century? That is the man known as Moshe ben Maimon, or as we call him for short, Harambam, or as he was known in the West, Maimonides. I first met him as a teenager. Of course, as an Israeli I knew who he was, I heard about him, there are streets named after him. But as a teenager, I started getting interested in philosophy, Jewish or otherwise, and I became really aware of Maimonides through Yeshayahu Leibovich, another Jewish philosopher which probably is worth making an entire video just dedicated to him. And Leibovich gave a lot of lectures and wrote several books about Rambam, Maimonides. But while Leibovich was modern, Maimonides was born in 1138 in Cordoba in Spain under the Muslim occupation. When Maimonides was a small child, the Almohads, a fanatical Islamist dynasty, took Cordoba, and as Islamists do, they offered Jews and Christians a simple choice: convert, go away, or die. I guess these days we'd say they are moderate for giving people the choice to leave, which is what the Maimon family chose to do. After a few years of wandering around, the family landed in modern-day Cairo, where the political climate was better and the local Jewish community was large and influential. There, Maimonides the youth was shown to be brilliant and a hard worker to the point of a workaholic. He studied medicine and became a doctor, but he also studied Judaism and became a rabbi. Eventually, he was both the leader of the Egyptian Jewish community and the personal physician of the Sultan, a man called Salah ad-Din. Yes, the same Salah ad-Din, or Saladin as you sometimes say in English, who fought Richard the Lionheart and conquered Jerusalem. Worth mentioning that at that time, while in Europe Jews were being persecuted, expelled, murdered, and banned from most professions, working for royalty would have been unheard of, in the Muslim world, it wasn't that rare that Jews were successful and influential. Maimonides treated literal royalty while writing religious and philosophical treatises that would change the course of Judaism forever and really the world. So, what have you been doing with your life? Sorry, my personal self-doubt and anger kinda leaked out. Anyway, Maimonides' magnum opus was the Guide for the Perplexed, Moreh HaNevochim, the book that changed everything. This book is why he's controversial. This book is why I absolutely adore him. First of all, it was written in Judeo-Arabic, which is Arabic written in Hebrew letters, because that was the spoken language of educated Jews in the Islamic world. It was intended for an elite audience, people who were both religious and educated. And in those days, being educated meant philosophically trained. For example, you had to know Aristotle. You know, it's ironic, most people don't know that, but it's thanks to the Arabs that a lot of the ancient Greek philosophers have not been lost to time. Because in the Middle Ages, those nice folks in Europe were not known for keeping the writings of thinkers, more for burning them, sometimes along with the thinkers. But the Arabs, in those days at least, viewed knowledge as knowledge, regardless of where it came from, and they translated those texts and kept them. Maimonides, who was a self-proclaimed fan of Aristotle, even to the point where he said that Aristotle was such a perfect human being that had he been Jewish, he would have been a prophet, and he read these books in Arabic. Anyway, the idea was that the book assumes that you are an educated person, that you know the philosophy and the sciences of the time, but also that you are well versed in Judaism. You know the Hebrew Bible, of course, but Rambam is also talking from a point of view of someone who is familiar with the Mishnah and the Talmud. And from that point, it is there to enlighten those who are perplexed about the very nature of the universe and the belief in God. And because it is written for the educated and because it floats controversial ideas, like the idea that only people who have achieved wisdom in their life live on after death, the book is considered by many to be condescending and elitist. The core argument of the guide is that there is no contradiction between what Judaism teaches and reason. In fact, Maimonides claims it is with reason that the leaders of Judaism have reached their conclusions. But in order to entice and explain it to the masses, things needed to be dumbed down to a level they will understand. That is a recurring theme in Maimonides' attitude. In one place in the guide, he says that God doesn't like sacrifices. He's talking about animal sacrifices that were made in the Great Temple. Maimonides says that God knew most people find new ideas and change difficult, so he created laws that restrict sacrifices with the intention of easing the people's way into abandoning the custom altogether. That is still considered a radical position. He also said all the descriptions of God in the Bible are metaphors or concessions to human language. God has to be brought down to the people's level in order for them to grasp the idea, to grasp the concept. But God has no body, no emotions, no voice. Every time the Bible says that God is angry or merciful or walks around or hears something, that's just human talk. God cannot be described in human terms. And to Maimonides, if you believe God literally has human feelings and gets mad, congratulations, you're an idolater. God can only be described in the negative, in what he is not visible, not emotional. An atheist like me would say not existing, but that just goes to show that you can admire a philosophical idea without actually adopting the fundamental beliefs that it relies on. But anyway, Maimonides doesn't believe in the supernatural. There was the moment of creation, and that's it. From that moment on, the world is natural. There's only natural law. In letters he sends to correspondents, he makes fun of astrology or people who believe in magic or spirits. The soul for him is a mental capability. And yes, he believed that a mind that has achieved wholeness, that is bright and aware, may live after the death of the body, but only that kind of mind. He also believed prophecy is not some magical download from God, but a natural phenomenon. If I modernize what he is saying, it's a moment when the person achieves such a realization that they can see the code of the matrix. And what they see may be terrifying for them, like it was for Jeremiah, but they are compelled to share what they've seen. You need two things to be a prophet: a perfect intellect and to be Jewish. He did believe there's a reason the Jews were chosen. As for miracles, Maimonides said they either didn't happen, or they are just metaphors, or that they were pre-programmed into nature from the beginning of time, meaning these are natural occurrences that we simply can't explain yet. An insanely out-of-time point of view for someone in the 12th century, a point of view that would have gotten you killed in Europe. Hell, a point of view that still makes people angry today. But he is basically saying that he does not believe in an interventionalist God. Until Spinoza, there won't be anyone as radical and shocking in Jewish philosophy. And that's not even the biggest grenade he throws into the minefield of belief. He says that your belief in God is not enough. It's basically not anything. Maybe a start, maybe just a start, but not much more. Think about a Christian who believes that on their deathbed they can pray to Jesus and that's enough to get them into heaven. And Maimonides is like, nah, you can be religious your entire life and it's nothing if you are doing it because you were told or because you are afraid or trying to gain something. And this is where I would have loved a conversation between him and a modern atheist like Dawkins. Because Rambam says that it's not just that you have to believe in God, you have to understand why you believe in God rationally. You have to be able to prove the rationality of that belief. And you have to realize the rationality in not just believing in God, but in loving Him, she, it. Maimonides would say God has no gender, so even our language is not good enough to discuss him, but we do what we can. So, miracles aren't real. The stories in the Bible are a metaphor. God doesn't get angry, prophecy is a natural talent, the afterlife is only for rational philosophers. And faith without understanding is basically worthless. You can probably guess that even today, when he is considered a high and mighty authority in religious law, his philosophy is very controversial. And at the time, there were fucking riots. Books were burned. Rabbis declared him a heretic. Very similar to what Spinoza felt centuries later. The Jewish world basically split into two camps, the Maimonidean rationalists and the Kabbalistic mystics. And I would claim that split still exists even today amongst religious Jews. But Maimonides didn't just influence Judaism. When you're reading modern philosophers, Descartes, Spinoza, all the way to Kant, you're getting glimpses of Maimonides. Kant's idea that morality comes from reason, that God is unknowable in essence, that religion is valid only insofar as it matches universal reasoning. I believe Biff said it best when he said,
"Something very familiar about all this."
Of course, there's no proof Kant read Maimonides, but there's also no denying the parallels. And we do know that Kant read Spinoza, and Spinoza definitely read the Rambam. So, that's the man and the legend. There's of course tons more that I can say about him. I didn't even talk about his groundbreaking work in religious law, but this video is already too long for my own good, so I'll leave it at that. But I definitely encourage you to go out and find some books about Maimonides or Harambam if I raised your interest. Until next time.